Hello, everyone, and welcome to ADB Football Focus. I hope you guys are having a terrific week because last week in the UFL was quite exciting. Now that you're here, make sure that you are hitting that like button, share, and subscribe. We like having you here, and we want you to have access to all of our content that we have available to you today. So this week, I got several things I want to do. But the first thing is, let's just go over last week's games, and then I'll kind of get into a discussion about some things that's going on in the league and update you. Last week's games were quite exciting. Two of them had major implications because they were playoff games. They were basically implicating not playoff games, but setting up who would be in the playoffs. Okay, so we'll start there. So both of the XFL games were about the playoffs. The pictures sit in the USFL as far as who will be in the playoffs. So that's Birmingham Stallions versus the Michigan Panthers. Like I said, these games had more of an implication of what's going to happen. Now, one game that was interesting, and the reason why I say it was interesting was because the starting quarterback was out for the St. Louis Battlehawks. That was St. Louis Battlehawks versus DC Defenders. And both of these teams are fighting for their playoff life. DC Defenders was in a little bit worse shape with 4 losses, so it required them to win this game and the Brahmins to lose their game. That was kind of the situation they were in. St. Louis just needed one more win to get in. And with McCarron out, I didn't know how this game would go, but I gave them an opportunity to possibly win the game, and they did. Manny Wilkins came in. He was 9 of 18 for 126 yards. He did enough. He didn't throw any interceptions or do anything like that. He did better running the ball. He had 12 carries for 79 yards, so he contributed, and he led to this team winning this week. He did a great job there. Jordan Te'amu didn't have that bad of a game, but he had the turnovers that led possibly to the loss. Jordan Te'amu was 23 of 40 for 196 yards. Again, when I see that many passes and not a whole lot of yards, that says a lot too. He had 2 TDs and 2 INTs, so 2 interceptions in the game. He also went out, I think, again with another concussion, so he's probably out for the rest of the season. At this point, it doesn't matter. Like I said, St. Louis won 26-21. DC is out. As far as their chance to get in the playoffs, they probably will finish. They could possibly finish 5-5. All the other games are kind of, just regular season games, just finishing out the season. Now, the other game that had implications was San Antonio Brahmas versus the Arlington Renegades. Now, Arlington Renegades was coming off a week in which they had just won their first game. So that game had some importance to Arlington Renegades. They could be spoilers to San Antonio, make it harder for them to get in the playoffs. It was a close game. Let's put it that way. It was a very, very close game. Quentin Darmody actually had a good game. He was 7 of 25 for 320 yards and 2 TDs. One of the biggest contributors in this game, this is something about San Antonio. They got 2 pretty decent run backs. They got John Lovett and they have Anthony McFarland. Now, they didn't contribute much in the running game this week. John Lovett had 11 of 37. And Anthony McFarland had 9 for 18. But McFarland, in the receiving game, as far as a back out of the backfield, he can make a great third down back for a team. McFarland had 2 long catches. He had one he caught at the line of scrimmage and took him to the end zone. I think it was 52 yards. 52 yards. That's Anthony McFarland. So we'll see how it goes next year. He probably end up a team. John Lovett has been proving himself in the season. At one point, he was an MVP candidate. Dormady had a great game this week. He's been helter-skelter. Like, one week he'd be terrible, next week he'd be great. But this week, he really did a good job. There are some rumors that the starting quarterback for San Antonio will be back. I don't know if he'll play this week, but he may be back for the playoffs. So we'll see how that goes. It just depends. He's got to go. Josh Gerber's got to go through practice and other things. You got to get a feel for the game again. If you've been out for a number of weeks, you kind of lose that feel for the game. So he's going to come back in a couple of weeks. Now, on the other side of the ball, Luis Perez was 20 of 33 for 209 yards and 2 touchdowns. So he didn't have a bad game. He just didn't have much support of a supporting cast. There was a lot of penalties in the game, some other mistakes in the games that cost them. They had 2 fumbles that they didn't lose, but they lost the game. Sal Cannella, their tight end, had probably the best game. He had 9 for 87 yards and 1 TD. You also had Tyler Vaughns, who had 8 who had 6 catches for 75 yards, no TDs. He had one drop that was huge at the beginning of the game. It was a deep pass, and he missed it. Those kind of things hurt them. Missed opportunities. That's been the Renegades' problem all season long, and it still continues to this day. Now, the other games that happened did not have any real playoff implications. Birmingham played Houston Roughnecks, but I was watching this game, and I could see that you could tell the injuries have hurt the Birmingham Stallions a wee bit. Their defense kind of was porous in this game. Houston was able to run the ball on them, actually. They had a total of 135 yards rushing in this game. Reed Sennett and Nolan Henderson both played because they were both ineffective, pretty much. They had 176 yards total passing. One touchdown by Reed Sennett and one interception. As usual, the Birmingham stood as strong as they could. Their offense was awesome. Adrian Martinez probably had one of the best games of the year. He's now 31, 173, 3 touchdowns. Now, he didn't have a whole lot of yards in the air, but he got 3 touchdowns. And he also had 2 touchdowns on the ground. So he was pretty much all of the scoring power in the game. It may have been a field goal or 2 that were kicked as well. Looking at this game, the only thing I see is the 28 points that the Roughnecks put up compared to the last game where they put up 9. See, Birmingham is kind of playing lamed up games at this point. The playoff game is set. Detroit is coming to Birmingham to play Birmingham in the playoff game. So if Birmingham loses 2 games, big deal. At this point, it doesn't look like they're going to lose 2 games. They got another game this week against San Antonio. For both teams, that's a lame duck game, but, there's probably some machismo where both teams want to win the game. We might see Matt Carroll this week. I don't know. Can't say that we will. Every week I say the same thing, because Lou Holtz says it's week by week that decides which quarterback will be the starter. At this point, it's been mostly Adrian Martinez, so I'm thinking it's going to be Adrian Martinez who's just been showing out. I don't know which running backs will play either. Ricky Person and Larry Roundtree played this time, so C.J. Marable was off this week. He wasn't injured, but he was off this week so that Roundtree could play. So we'll see what happens there with the Birmingham Stallions. Now, the other game, of course, was, I won't say I feel for the Memphis Showboats, but in a way I don't. They've been terrible for a while. They won the first game, I think it was against Houston. They played the first game of the year, and people were expecting a lot out of Memphis, so I guess you could say that was a disappointment. We thought they were going to be the second best team in the USFL. It turned out to be the team that they played, Michigan Panthers, that's been the second best team in the UFL. That defense has been spectacular all year. You can't knock a team that has a great front four and pretty decent secondary. And that's Michigan Panthers. You got a whole bunch of guys who were NFL hopefuls. And I know one of them, Garrett Marino, he played at UAB. He's one of the sons of UAB like myself. He was an awesome player at UAB. He should have been in the league, but, he kind of aged out as far as the league goes. But he still gets the opportunity to get in the league if, he's played in the Canadian League. He gets an opportunity to still get in the league if he plays in a game like this and people see what he does. Pretty much that whole defense has just been rocking and rolling. As usual, Memphis has not been able to stop anybody from sacking the quarterback. And I did not even see how many sacks they had in this game, but I'm sure it was enough to draw ires. I think it was 4. Yeah, Memphis got 4 sacks against them. So quarterback-wise, Case Cook has played. He was the starting quarterback. And Josh Lowe came in relief of him at one point. Case Cook has had a pretty ineffective day. He was 10 of 16, 170 yards, 1 TD, 1 interception. He threw a lot of passes that either were dropped or he threw them too long. Watching the highlights of the games, like I said, I didn't get a chance to sit down this week and watch the games like I normally do, but I got to watch the highlights and I could see that, he was worried at times, and sometimes receivers just weren't open. That's how good Michigan's secondary is. They just weren't open at all. Now, here's the thing about the running game. Michigan destroyed the Memphis defensive line, which hasn't been able to stop the run all year. So Matthew Colburn, the second, had 24 carries for 93 yards, 2 TDs. Bryce Perkins had 9 for 55. And Brian Lewerke, the quarterback, he had 3 for 13. That's another thing. Michigan has been through a number of quarterbacks. This is, I believe, is their third or fourth set of quarterbacks because they're Bryce Perkins and Brian Lewerke are currently the two quarterbacks that are taking place. I don't know who's going to be the starter in the next game. I don't know who's going to be playing. I haven't seen Perry since the beginning of the season, and I'm just not sure what quarterback is going to play because we're getting close to the playoffs. I hope if Lewerke works out, I guess he'll be the starting quarterback. He had 6 of 11 for 82 yards. Bryce Perkins came in. He was 7 of 9 for 106 yards, 1 TD, but for some reason he didn't play the whole game. I don't know if he got hurt. I have to look on the injury report to see, but he didn't play the whole game. So, like I said, these games are kind of not the relevant games, but they count, So, again, Michigan won 24, Memphis 18. So that's talking about that. I'll get to my predictions for next week's games in a few minutes. What I want to talk about while we're in the middle of everything I want to talk about is the state of UFL football. There's a couple of things that stand out. And first, let me tell you the sort of bad things. Not really bad, but bad things. One thing is next year the UFL will not be expanding to 10 teams. They have, even though they had made a deal with the government, the reason why is Fox and I believe ESPN, ABC, all of them are publicly traded companies and they have to go through certain government agreements when they do deals with these leagues, and they have part ownership of the UFL or partnership with the UFL. So they had to go through the government to get that done. Part of that deal was they were supposed to expand to 10 teams. Okay, well, UFL is going to look to ask the government for forgiveness, and they're saying they're not going to expand to 10 teams next year. So that's one of the bad things that I'm seeing about the league because they were supposed to expand and they aren't. But at the same time, it may be a good thing. We need another season where the UFL is the UFL because they just started in like January working together. So now they've kind of got all their eggs in one carton and everything where they want it. So they think a year of promotion, promoting the league, getting season tickets out, having the teams to actually work in the cities that they are in, which, like I said, Birmingham Stallions have been in Birmingham the whole time. Same with most of the teams. All the teams have been in their city for a while, but they all have to work from that hub in Arlington, which is crazy. But hopefully, a year in the city, in the city where they are going to be, that's going to be interesting. But we'll talk about something else that's going to deal with changes as far as cities on teams in a second. Another thing that kind of bothers me is there's a talk. I don't know if it's true, but it's coming from UFL Hub. I think the guy's name is Mark Perry. He pretty much did an article all about the state of the UFL. He knows more about the inside than anybody else. They're going to cut coaches' salaries. Now, they did that. They did some changes with coaching as this transitioned over to the UFL. The USFL was doing some changes last year. The XFL had to do some changes. There have been some transition. We lost 8 teams, so there were some coaches that lost their job in the process. But this year, there's also been they made coaches part-time, but now they're talking about altering coaches' pay, like dropping the pay or something like that. And especially the winning team coaches, like St. Louis Battlehawks, Birmingham Stallions, Lou Holtz. Those guys don't want to lose their salary or they're going to leave. So that's a scary thought if that's really what's going on. Maybe they'll negotiate to fix that problem. I hope that doesn't happen. That's one of the things that kind of it's kind of bothering me because we've got a good thing here in Birmingham. We've got a good head coach. The only thing is we're probably going to lose our general manager to the NFL because he's a decent general manager. You see what the personnel that Birmingham has. I mean, it's like the most talented team, and even when somebody goes down, they bring in somebody. They bring in talent. You know what I'm saying? So we've got a decent team, so we don't want to lose that. That's what we don't want to lose. Hopefully they get that negotiation settled with that. Now, some other things that I'm hearing about the league. Everybody's asking, where's The Rock? Where's Danny Garcia? Again, Mark Perry says doesn't really have any information on that. Maybe they're taking a back seat to people who are working in the front office, the presidents, the people who head of football operations, letting them handle things. You got Daryl Johnson and guys like that. They're doing the best they can to try to work on that. Good news for the Memphis market. Something else I want to talk about. They are not moving. They are not going anywhere. Apparently, the CEO of FedEx, CEO or chief executive of FedEx, he's happy with having Memphis in town. He just feels like they need more promotion. A year in promotion, a year of getting to know the team helps. If the Memphis can improve their staff, improve their team, and it can show better in that area, it probably will improve on the number of people going to the games. Teams like Houston and Memphis and the Renegades are suffering simply because they're losing this year. I think Arlington eventually will get a decent crowd. This is something I want to talk about because Michigan Panthers and the Houston Roughnecks, and it's funny because they play this week. Both of them are probably going to change locations. They're not going to leave the state where they are or the area where they are. Michigan is probably going to move to Ann Arbor or East Lansing. So I think those two are there. I don't think Lithonia is on the list. I don't know if there's a stadium in Lithonia. Some of my local friends will have to tell me if there's a stadium in Lithonia. I'm sure there's some small school they could play there. Houston Roughnecks are moving back to their traditional home. I forgot the city, but it's somewhere in Houston. They're moving back to that particular stadium because there was some construction going on. Now, I can see the problem with Ford Field probably being a little expensive for the UFL, so they're trying to find a less expensive venue. Another good thing that's happening is season tickets. They're on hold in Michigan, maybe on hold in Houston. They may not be on hold in Houston, but on hold in Michigan until they've settled on what location they will be at. I hope Ann Arbor is not that far from Detroit. I hope it's more like East Lansing, but we'll see what happens. Right, so we'll see how that goes. One of those two will be the home location for the Panthers. They're not leaving the state. They're not leaving Michigan because they're going to still be the Michigan Panthers. Houston is not leaving the Houston area. It'll still be in Houston. Memphis is not leaving Memphis. The team just feels like they need one more year in their city to get promotion, people have been saying, you need to be at every little thing. Even when UAB starts their season, you need Stallions people showing up at UAB games because both of those guys, let me explain something. If there's one thing Birmingham could have is like a powerful structure here because UAB is a team that's trying to get more bodies in the stands. We average about 30,000, well, I ain't going to say 30, 20,000, 22,000, 25,000 a game. And we want more bodies in the seat. Stallions want more bodies in the seat. They could come to some of the games, participate in, stuff that happens in between quarters or at halftime, have signings and stuff like that at games. Go to the Alabama games, go to the Auburn games, go to state. We got so many schools in the state. We go down to, as far as Mobile, go to Montgomery, go to Auburn, just all the different teams we got in the state. You got opportunities here to just get your name out there and do those things. Same with all the other teams. DC is not having a problem, and St. Louis is not having. They're the top markets in the team. It's 14,000 a game comes to DC games, and I think the average for St. Louis is like 35,000 people. So we can do better. Our average is around 10 to 12,000. We've had some issues this year because we've ran into things like I've been telling people, it's not hard. It's hard to compete with Alabama, even if it's a spring game, because Alabama football is deep in the state. Then you had Talladega. Again, both of those were big in Alabama. Then you had the Regions Classic, but the Regions Classic also happened in the process. So we had some other things happen. It does help to have other events going on around Protective Stadium because it draws men into the game. So if the women are at the convention center because of clothing, this, that, and the other, or some other thing is going on around there, we have Top Golf, we have Uptown. So we have a lot of people that get drawn down there on weekends. It's great atmosphere to have a football game. So it'll get better. We had a great game when we had Battlehawks versus the Birmingham Stallions, because that was like the best game of the year. It drew about 14,000, I believe. It was 14,000 people at the game. That was a good game. So I believe that we can improve the amount of people at the game. We can improve the attendance. That's not a problem. TV numbers look good. Everybody's happy. I believe that Redbird is one of the major investors. Then you got Fox. You got Disney. They're happy. So ESPN, when I say Fox, when I say Disney, I mean ESPN, ABC. They're happy. The numbers look good. They want to go with another season. They're hoping to keep going with the season. They're going to keep building on this. So the other thing that helped the league was reducing down to 8 teams because you got the best of the best roster. You had you didn't have to distribute all your best players across 16 teams. You got to pick of the litter, so to speak, plus guys from the CFL, NFL guys. They're going to have a draft this year. That's right. They're going to have a rookie draft. They had one with the USFL and XFL last year, I believe, but this will be the first one for the UFL. They're going to have a rookie draft. Guys who did not get any NFL guys who, in their draft is a little bit different. They will pick up guys from the portal who doesn't make it on a team. They will pick up guys from junior colleges who don't make it on a team. I don't know if they do high school, but they may even include some guys who just don't make it on a college team that have some talent and they think might be talented enough to be in the UFL. That's going to be a great thing. So, I'm talking about a lot of things going on here in the league. Coaches' salaries, like I said, there's a lot of changes coming, but the UFL is still coming back next year. One other thing that they're doing is trying to start when the start date's going to be. Some people want them to move back to February. That's not going to happen. It's going to either be March 1st or the end of the month, like 23rd or 29th. They're trying to decide whether they're going to start at the beginning of March or at the end of March. That seems to be about the time. February is off the table. Totally off the table. Expansion may come after next season. We're going to see how it goes next season. I think it's going to get better. The one thing that was good was how TV ratings actually improved as the season went on as opposed to going the other way. But you had some good product out there. You got St. Louis Battlehawks, Birmingham Stallions, San Antonio Brahmas that are all playing really well. Michigan plays pretty decent, and so does DC. Even though they're not having a great season, they still play pretty good, and they have a chance to finish 500. So you got four or five teams that are really good in the league, and you do have three bottom feeder teams, unfortunately. But that could improve over time, and then we can see play balance out as time goes on and make for more challenging seasons as we get improved rosters and so on and so forth. The question is, how many of these players are you going to lose to the league? Stallions definitely are going to lose some. St. Louis is definitely going to lose some players. That happens. Attrition happens. I'm sure San Antonio is going to lose some players, but then it's how you replace those players. Like I said, the draft, the rookie draft, and then the supplemental draft later on. That we'll see how these leagues improve and what goes on from there. So that's it for all of that wonderful league news. We're going to try to take a break right here, and I'm going to give you a little information about my other channel. You woke? Time to get up. All right, we're back. So what I'm going to do now is, of course, what I do every week. I'm going to give my fearless predictions of next week's games. So let's start with St. Louis Battlehawks versus Arlington Renegades. Arlington Renegades play well. Luis Perez and the Arlington Renegades play well every week. They have a great Sal Cannell is a great tight end. He's going to probably catch passes in this game. St. Louis is St. Louis. It's just the most talented team in the league. It has a will to win. Will they win this week? Depends on whether A.J. McCarron plays or not this week also. But I think St. Louis wins this game 24-21. Birmingham Stallions versus San Antonio Brahmas. This is probably the best game of the week and probably will be the most watched game of the week. I believe it's at 3 p.m. on Saturday. And I'm going to say this. I think that the Birmingham Stallions will win this game, but it's going to be close. It's going to be the highest scoring game of the year. It's 32-28 for them, or it might be 34-28. 34-28. But it's going to be a really, really close game. It's two very good teams, very talented teams. I think Birmingham has the better quarterback core. So what wins out in the game is that quarterback core, just like in that last game. Stallions are having some trouble on defense, with injuries, but I think they still have a superior defense. San Antonio doesn't have a bad one either, but I think this one goes out for Birmingham Stallions. And again, best game of the week. So I would tune into that one. Okay. For the Sunday slate of games, Michigan Panthers versus Houston Roughnecks. Well, Michigan Panthers is on a tear. They're on the way to the playoffs. They call these lame duck games, but you still want to come out and show out that you can play really well. Houston played well against Birmingham last week. It may play well against Michigan Panthers, but that defense is a whole lot tougher than you might think. I think Michigan Panthers win this one 18-12. Then comes the DC Defenders versus Memphis Showboats. DC Defenders coming off a tough loss from the St. Louis Battlehawks. They will be minus Jordan Tayamu, but I don't think that's going to matter in this game because Memphis does not have the juice. Their quarterback will be running for his life in this game. So in the end, I think the score will be 24-12. DC Defenders. Well, guys, I hope you guys have a fabulous week watching UFL games. Got a show coming up about college football, as I've been talking about. There's a lot going on in college football, especially with NIL lawsuits and things like that. So I will be talking about that soon. You guys have a wonderful week, and thank you again for listening to ADB Sports Football Focus. Make sure you like, share, and subscribe.